Hey guys, so for today's lesson we're going to be dealing with trigonometric equations part 3, which is to do with compound angles. Okay, so what do I mean by a compound angle? It's an unknown angle, like theta, which is impacted by an operation before the trig ratio is applied. So an example of this is, say, tan of 2 theta. And the reason is because this is the same as tan of 2 times theta. So notice that our theta is being impacted by this operation of timesing by 2 before the tan affects it. So say if our theta was 30 here, it would mean that the 30 is being times by 2 first, so it goes to 60, and then tan is applied to that angle of 60, which makes root 3. So whenever you're dealing with equations which have this sort of compound angle, you have to remember a few extra sort of steps with how to deal with them. So these are definitely more advanced sort of trigonometric equations that you do have to practice. Okay, so how to solve these compound angle equations. There's a few extra steps that you have to remember to do with these. Okay, so step 1, you need to let u equal the compound angle. It's all about changing a compound angle into an angle u, which is not a compound angle. So we let u equal this compound angle. Step 2, we then convert the domain for theta to the domain for u. We need to be dealing with to be able to work with this u, we need to have the domain for it. So we just have to work with the domain that they usually give us. So they will always give you some sort of domain, as you see down here. We need to change it up. So instead of x in the middle, we need it to be for u instead. Okay, step number 3, we solve the trig equation for u. That's just using the basic methods, which we did in the lessons beforehand. So that doesn't really change. And then step 4, in your solutions for u, because we found out u using our basic methods, then we want to convert back to our theta or our x. And then we just solve for these thetas in every solution that we find for u. Okay, so let's do an example. So solve this equation here, where x is between 0 and 360. So first up, we see our compound angle of 2x. We want to let u equal that 2x. We want to be able to work with u's, not 2x's, because compound angles are not very nice to us with these equations. Step number 2, we want to prepare ourselves to work with this u. We want to get the right domain. We want to change this x so it becomes a u. The way to do it is to change x to 2x, and then we can change 2x to our u that we want. So how do we change our x to a 2x? Well, we're just going to times by 2. And what we do to the middle, we have to do to the outside numbers as well. So 0 times 2 is 0. 2 times x times 2 is 2x. Good. And 360 times 2 gives us our 270. And then we can change our 2x to our u because of this. So that was the aim. Now we've got our domain for u. U is between 0 and 720. Okay, step number 3. We've got our domain. Now we can solve the equation for u. We firstly change our 2x to our u because we want to be working with u's. We got to get u by itself. So we do the inverse tan of both sides. Inverse tan of root 3 gives us our related angle of 60. So we get that u is equal to 60 degrees, but that's just a related angle as well, remember? Notice that our tan is positive, because positive root 3. So that means we're going to be dealing with the first quadrant, tan is positive there, and the third quadrant, where tan is positive. So we need to make angles of 60 degrees. Okay, so first angle, 60 degrees, is just here. So that is literally the angle 60 degrees if we're using the 0 degree angle. So that's our first value for u. Make sure we're dealing with u's at the moment. This one in the third quadrant, this one here, that is making the angle of 240. So that's our next solution. Notice that we're only dealing with where's our domain for u? Our domain for u was between 0 and 720. So we've got to be using angles all the way from 0 all the way up to 720. So notice we're only dealing with positive angles, so we're only going anti-clockwise. Okay, we've got 60 and 240 from this dot and this dot, but notice how our domain wants to go all the way up to 720. That means that that 720 is literally 2 positive revolutions of a circle. Like that's 360. 720 is going around again. So if these are the dots that work, we've got to think to ourselves, what is the angle if we add on another 360 degrees? So we can get more solutions by taking these 2 values that we've already got and then adding 360 to them. So 60 plus another 360 going around again, that gives us another angle that works, 420. And 240 plus our 360 gives us another angle that works, 600. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4 values for u that work for this equation. So that's step number 3 done. Find all the values that work in the range for u, which is 0 to 720. Okay, moving on. Step 4. We work with our 4 equations that we found, and then we want to substitute our u back in for x's. So u changes to 2x each time, and then we get x by itself. So divide by 2, we get that x is 30 here. Divide by 2 here, we get that x is 120. Here we get x is 210, and here we get x is 300. So these are our solutions for x. We eventually want to end up going back to x. Remember that x is between 0 and 360, and all these values are between 0 and 360. So it's a way of kind of checking that that something's going right. Okay, done. So you would need all 4 answers to get full marks for this sort of question. Okay, so question 2. Now we want to solve this trigonometric equation with a compound angle. Notice x is between 0 and 360. So our compound angle is x take away 250. Notice the minus 250 is applied to the x before the sign because of the brackets. Okay, so step 1, we want to let our u equal this thing. Let u equal x minus 250. Step number 2, we want to go from our domain for x to our domain for u somehow. The way to do it is to change x to x minus 250. We do that by literally taking away 250 from each side. 0 take away 250, that's minus 250. X take away 250, that gives us what we want because that will change to u. And then 360 take away 250, that gives you 110. Okay, so that changes to our u. We get our domain for u. X has to be between minus 250 and 110. So this is really important to work with when you're solving for u. Okay, so step 3, now we solve the equation for u. So first up, we change it to our desired angle of u, which is not a compound angle. And now we need to get u by itself, so we do inverse sine of both sides. Now when we apply inverse sine to this, we've got to change the negative fraction to its positive version. And we get that u is 60. That's the related angle, remember. But we want sine, in this case, to be negative, this negative fraction. Where is sine negative? Sine is negative in the... Sorry, I'll just fix these ticks up. It's definitely not negative there. It's not negative there. But it is negative in these quadrants here. So tick and tick. So it's 3 and 4 that we want. We want that quadrant and this quadrant to make our 60-degree angles. Remember, here it is, 60 degrees. So I can make a 60-degree angle down here with the x-axis. Notice, before we actually go into these answers, I want you to notice the domain for u here, between minus 250 and 110. So we've got to think, where are they on the unit circle, these boundaries? So, well, let's do 110 first. So 110 is going past 90. It's going all the way to this green line here. That's as maximum as u gets. It doesn't want to go any further than that anti-clockwise, because that's what positive angles are. It wants to go all the way to negative 250, and that's going all the way around this way to this line as well. So you've got to keep that in mind for the sort of angles that you're going to be dealing with for this related angle. So we want to go for negative angles all the way up to here, and if we're on the other side, we're going to be using these positive angles here, if that makes sense. Okay, so we want to make 60-degree angles. We want to make this angle first. That angle down there is going to be using the negative angles that we want, because we can go all the way to negative 250. So that's going to be the angle negative 60, that line there. So that's our first angle. And then the other 60-degree angle we can make is this one here. But what is that angle if we use the 0-degree line? Well, that's going to be in this negative section. And it's going to go all the way over to here, which is going to be negative 120. So that's going to be the angle that we're going to use. U is equal to negative 120. So we figured out what U is, these two angles. So make sure you understand when to use negative angles and when to use positive ones. It's all based on the domain that's given to you. Okay, so we've got our values for U. Let's do step number 4. So now that we know what U is, negative 60 and negative 120, we want to change our U back to what it's equal to in terms of X. So U is equal to X minus 250, so that they change. Both U's change to X minus 250. And then you get your X by itself by adding the 250 to both sides. So minus 60 plus 250 gives you a value of X, which is X equals 190. And over here, where's my pen? Minus 120 plus 250 gives us positive 130 degrees. And these are the two answers that we need for this question. Only two values at work. Hope this helps you with some of the questions. Bye.